Mr. Speaker, I rise in opposition to House Resolution 72. This resolution sets a dangerous new standard that will only deepen divisions within this House. For all their talk about norms and institutions, it's the Democrats who've acted to undermine the people's House at every turn. Let's check the record. Afraid for their political careers, they have moved to shut down debate and silence dissent in committee and on this floor. They went so far as to eliminate the motion to recommit, the minority party's only chance to offer an amendment, which stood for over a century until this year. They have rushed impeachments through without a shred of due process, just like today, reducing this tool from the highest constitutional remedy to just another opportunity to fundraise and go on TV. And now they are declaring the majority has veto power over the minority's members' selections for committee. Now, we have reviewed this with the parliamentarian. Never before in the history of this House has the majority abused its power in this way. Never. In the entire history of this House have you ever abused the power in this way. But it's clear Speaker Pelosi's caucus thinks differently. They're blinded by partisanship and politics. And it's the American people who will suffer the most because of it. As for the member in question, let me be very clear. Representative Greene's past comments and posts as a private citizen do not represent the values of my party. As a Republican, as a conservative, as an American, I condemn those views unequivocally. I condemned them when they first surfaced, and I condemn them today. This House overwhelmingly voted to condemn the dangerous lies of QAnon last Congress and continue to do so. I made this clear when I met with Representative Greene. I also made clear that we as members have a responsibility to hold ourselves to a higher standard. She acknowledged this during our conversation and apologized for her past comments. I will hold her to her words and her actions moving forward. But because these comments caused such deep wounds, I offered Leader Hoyer a path to lower the temperature and address these concerns in a productive way. I offered to remove Representative Greene from Ed and Labor, but it was rejected. It was rejected. Now, privately, I've had calls from many Democrats acknowledging what they're doing is wrong. They understand that this partisan power grab is not only cynical, it's hypocritical. If this is the new standard, I look forward to continuing out the standard. Because if you look for a side that has a leadership that's done something when their members do something as a member, not prior, look to me. Because I did just that. But when a Democrat freshman said, Israel has hypnotized the world, that supporting Israel is all about the Benjamins, and that 9/11, some people did something. Did Speaker Pelosi kick her off Foreign Affairs Committee? Or did she keep her on the committee and even pose with her on the cover of a magazine? That's right. Will the standard change? When another Democrat was compromised by a Chinese spy, that it was so serious that the FBI had to brief the congressional leaders, did Speaker Pelosi remove him from the House Intelligence or Homeland Security committees after the briefing? I'm the only other person that had that same briefing just recently. I was in the room with the Speaker. I heard what was said. I'll be very clear. I would never have that member on either of those committees? Or did she reward him by making him the head of the subcommittee overseeing the CIA? I guess there's different standards. When the chairman of the Rules Committee objected to certifying the 2016 election, citing Russian interference, did Speaker Pelosi censure him? How about when the chairwoman of the Financial Service Committee told supporters at a rally in 2017? She was a member then, unlike the person we're talking about today. If you see anyone from the cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out. You create a crowd. You push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anywhere with anyone anymore. After she called for violence against public servants, did Speaker Pelosi condemn it? Or did she look the other way and make her chairwoman again? I don't know if you want to amend this one and add others so you can keep your standard. The answer is obvious. While Democrats attack Congresswoman Greene, they not only ignore the infractions within their own party, they reward these members with prestige and influence. When it comes time to vote, I expect Democrats will codify this partisan power grab. I would advise them to think twice and pull this resolution from the floor while they still can. I've heard Democrats quote Senator Minority Leader to defend this resolution. I would remind them what Leader McConnell said when Democrats voted to nuke the judicial filibuster. You'll regret this, and you may regret this a lot sooner than you think. If that's the new standard, if people are held to what they are said prior to even being in this House, if majority party gets to decide who sits on what other committees, I hope you keep that standard, because we have a long list you can work within your own. In the end, this resolution is merely a distraction from the real issues. In the last 2 weeks, Democrats have taken just 2 votes, the one today and the one last month on a waiver for a cabinet member. This is the least productive Congress since last year. I thought that'd be hard to beat. There is nothing for workers who have lost their jobs, including thousands of blue-collar jobs that were eliminated just by a stroke of a pen of President Biden, even laying off the union workers who endorsed him. It's a shame. They need that job. It's a good-paying job. Nobody sat and talked to him before or asked them. They just laid him off. Nothing for students who've been stuck learning from behind screens for nearly a year, even though the administration's CDC director says in-person learning is safe. Nothing to increase the pace of vaccine distributions so we can get them to people who want them and get one step closer to fully reopening this economy. At a time when households are already struggling, Congress should use its window of opportunity to get Americans back to work, get kids back to school, and vaccines for any American who wants it. These are the immediate priorities that deserve our energy and our attention. This is what we would work on if we had the opportunity to be in the majority, or even had the same opportunity that those in the minority had for the last 100 years to offer a motion to recommit. Mr. Speaker, as I've said before, a House distracted cannot govern. And we're proving it one more time today. Let's stop trying to invent dangerous and divisive ways to abuse the power of a majority and start working on what really matters. No one supports what was said. before a person ever became a member. When a member said something that was inappropriate on this side of the aisle, we removed them from committee because they said it as they were a member. As we list the long list of the standards on the other side, no one ever got removed. They got rewarded. And now, more than 200-year history in this body is going to change. But if it changed as a standard to reach all, I'll be right here with you. If the concern was really what the majority leader said to me about being on Education Committee, I'm the first one to switch it. I actually offered it. That would be appropriate, but not for this majority. They believe something different, and that's wrong. Just as the words that were said were wrong. That member came to this floor to answer those questions. She did it as a member of Congress, not as a private citizen when they were said. I listened to President Biden as I watched him sworn in. I heard the word unity. That's why I reached out as well. If there's concern about education, we can fix that. If there's concern on the other side about working with people who are getting laid off with every stroke of every executive order, I'll work to fix that. If there's concern about getting kids back in school, we'll work on that. If there's concern about getting a vaccine to any American who wants it, we'll work on that. But unfortunately, the majority gets to decide what comes to the floor. And once again, this Congress will get listed as the least productive Congress in history. But the one thing it will have a record of is changing the rules to be one-sided, a long history that I believe this body will be embarrassed by. I yield back.
Gentleman from California yields back.